Well, hello, everyone. Salamat-sizby, Zdravstvuyte. On behalf of the British-Kazakh Society, it's again a pleasure to welcome you today to this webinar titled Finance for Mining in Kazakhstan. We're also pleased to say this event is in cooperation with our special partner, the Department of International Trade, and Ross Lund will say a few words on behalf of the DIT.
Thank you, David. Yes, good day, everybody, and welcome from DIT to this BKS session.
Мне очень приятно сегодня записывать на нашей встрече. Я рада, что сегодня у меня появится возможность поговорить на такую большую аудиторию.
So mining exploration and development is a finance-hungry business. A drill campaign sufficient to prove a resource can cost tens of millions of pounds, and the development of a mid-size base metals project can cost hundreds of millions of pounds. London is an important centre for mining finance. You might look to Australia for high-risk prospecting finance, to Canada for exploration equity, but if you're developing a mine, you'll definitely find yourself in London at some point. London is the natural axis for Central Asian projects and hosts the world's leading mining finance cluster, encompassing hedge funds, private equity, investment banks, brokers, insurance, lawyers, accountants, royalty and alternative financing companies, EBRD, and of course the London Stock Exchange, Metals Exchange, and Bullion market. The UK has been very pleased to work with Kazakhstan in supporting its ambition of being the finance centre of Central Asia. And it's impressive to see the progress that has been made with the AIFC and the AIX. Today we'll have a discussion on mining finance from an impressive panel who all happen to be female. And I'm very pleased to be part of this session. And now I'd like to hand over to Beth, who's going to moderate the session. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just interrupt one moment on a couple of housekeeping events. The first the webinar will be video recorded and available on the website after the event. Secondly, there is a simultaneous interpretation into Russian. And if you're on a laptop or desktop, you should find it about here on the on your lower screen. But I will advise it is important, if you change over to Russian, to mute the original sound, because one of the panelists will be pre-recorded and you have to undertake that. Otherwise you will have a double voice on there. So mute the original sound for Russian. So with that, we'll go on to our moderator today, because Beth Payne, she's a communications and investor relations professional with Wardell Armstrong. She has experience working in a commercial capacity with a range of mining sector companies in a number of jurisdictions. Over to you, Beth.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you, Roz, as well, for inviting me to be part of such a wonderful panel of experienced women today. So just briefly, I'll run through who we have joining us today. We have Dilyara Tektigulova from the Kazakh Invest National Company, Ayuna Nechaeva from the London Stock Exchange Group, Natalia Laquazana from the EBRD, Yelena 10 representing the Astana International Finance Centre, and last but certainly not least, we have Gulshan Kashabayeva, who's our guest speaker from Women in Mining Kazakhstan. So before I introduce our first speaker, can I just encourage participants and the audience to ask questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We will be having a 15-minute Q&A session at the end, so please send in as many questions as you can. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Dilyara Tektigulova. Unfortunately, Dilyara can't actually be here with us today, but she's been kind enough to send over a pre-recording along with her presentation. Dilyara is a Project Director, Department of Project Management at Kazakh Invest National Company. She started her career as a fellow at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and in 2013 to 2014, gained experience working with the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, as well as the Department of Management. She joined the Kazakh Invest National Company in 2014, and since then has been promoted to Department Director. So a very warm virtual welcome to Dilyara.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this event. I'd like to present you some insight into mining and metallurgical industry prospects and opportunities in this session. For Kazakhstan, mining and metallurgical industry plays an important strategic role. It's our second economy after oil and gas, where more than 20% of national exports and industry is concentrated. Overall, Kazakhstan ranks world 6th for its natural resources and 10th for the volume of minerals, excluding oil and gas. In terms of variety of minerals, Kazakhstan is also distinguished by its leading positions. 99 chemical elements are identified in the subsoil of Kazakhstan, and 70 of them are explored and 60 are being extracted. We believe that prospects for the development of mining metallurgical industry in Kazakhstan are related to the following. First is the exploration of new prospective areas that have not been explored before or explored to limited extent. Kazakhstan has adopted a new mining code in 2018, and it opened up myriad opportunities for industry players. Second is the development of deposits for which exploration and mining licenses have been already provided. So in this regard, Kazakh Invest has a pipeline of private Kazakh companies, subsoil users, that are looking for partnership with foreign investors. Third is the application of new efficient methods for ore processing and metal producing to the previously already explored deposits in order to increase their productivity and reach economic feasibility. In this regard, we welcome all UK and other foreign companies that are interested in cooperating in this field and who have expertise and technology in order to increase the economic feasibility in the traditionally extracted ores and produced metals. And last but not the least is development of further conversion for metal processing. As I mentioned, an important initiative, actually key initiative of Kazakhstan in mining industry was the adoption of new legislation, the new code on subsoil and subsoil use, so-called mining code. And conceptual innovations in this regard are the following: principle of first come, first serve, which is the world best practice. Open access to geological information. Currently, we are developing national bank data bank, and it is to be launched this year. Reduction of administrative barriers. Today, for example, it takes only up to 10 days to get a license. Before, it would take like about 18 months. And transition to the international valuation standard, CRISCO. And also an important should be noted that ensuring functioning of junior companies and the possibility of raising capital. Today there is a new segment in the stock exchange of Astana International Financial Center that ensures and provide opportunities to companies to raise capital for exploration, and there is minimal requirements for listing. Should be noted that our new mining code fully corresponds to the Australian model. And as I said, there are also opportunities with the existing subsoil users, and they are willing to cooperate with foreign investors. In order to promote these investment proposals effectively, Kazakh Invest has been closely cooperating with Big Four consulting companies. Our aim is to match these investment opportunities with suitable foreign investors. We have more than 40 projects available. Teasers on these projects are available on our website. We have opportunities in base metals, precious metals, iron ore, rare and rare earth metals. I'd like to draw your attention on availability of energy metals in Kazakhstan. We have, as there is a big demand for lithium-ion batteries and other rare and rare earth metals, we believe foreign investors should have a closer look to our projects in lithium, nickel, vanadium, and others. So as for the lithium, there is in Kazakhstan, there is no full research has been done in this field. So currently there are several private Kazakhstani companies that obtained licenses for exploration, and they have started their exploration works and looking for partnership with foreign investors. And we would gladly share these opportunities with you. In terms of nickel, we have also major deposits. However, as the content of lithium is only in the range between 0.7 and 1.2%, the new technologies like fluoride leaching or autoclave acid leaching should be applied in order to increase their productivity. With vanadium as well, we have already refining facilities, but in order to increase their volume, it is important to use new technologies. And yeah, we have new already refining facilities, and new development is connected with the deposits that have unconventional ore composition. And as I mentioned, for Kazakhstan, mining metallurgical industry is strategic, and in order today the government's strategic role is to maximize the processing of raw materials within the country. In this regard, foreign investors and all the investors that are invest in mining and metallurgy can obtain investment and tax preferences from the government. We have 13 special economic zones, and preferences in these special economic zones and other regions are pretty the same. Although in special economic zones, we have each of them focused on particular sector, and we have ready infrastructure on plug-and-play basis in there. Investment preferences include exemption from customs duties, also in-kind grants, simplified procedure for obtaining, attracting foreign labor, also investment subsidies, and tax preferences include corporate income tax, 0% for 10 years, land tax also 0% for 10 years, and property tax for 8 years. And yeah, in this regard, I would like to emphasize that our role here is to help you to start your business in Kazakhstan, and we are here to support all your investment initiatives. And we believe that a favorable investment climate in Kazakhstan will allow you to do successful business in our country. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much to Dilyara for providing that for us. If you do have any questions for Dilyara, please do still ask them. We will be able to pass those on, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to get in touch with anybody that wants to discuss her presentation. So next up, we have Ayuna Nechaeva. She's head of the Europe Primary Markets at the London Stock Exchange Group. Ayuna runs London Stock Exchange's primary markets deal origination team across Europe, Russia, CIS countries and Central Asia. In her 10 years at the London Stock Exchange Group, Ayuna has brought a lot of high-profile IPOs and listings to London. Her team currently manages a portfolio of over 200 listed issuers with worth about $1 trillion US. I'll hand over now to Ayuna.
Thank you very much, Beth. Hello, David, Rose, and I'm sorry I was a couple of minutes late. I was just changing channels. I was moderating a different conference just before that. But I don't have any slides today, but I would love to talk you through some of the interesting new trends that we're seeing from the London Stock Exchange perspective in the mining sector. As you know, London as a financial center has always had a very good track record with metals and mining issuers. And there is an investor base, there is a deep pool of liquidity and available capital to international and UK companies. And of course, you know, the big giants like, BHP, etc. They always have this international outlook, and they, of course, also want to tap into London. But the trend that we've seen actually recently is a lot of companies from the North America that are already listed in countries like Canada and the USA would want to come and actually list and have a dual listing in London. So, for example, Yamana Gold, it's a very big gold producer, listed in London actually during the pandemic last year, and then of course earlier this year we've had Cornish Metals, which is Canada-based, which tapped into the London market, raising just around 5 million sterling. So that's the kind of the big picture. With regard to Kazakhstan, it's interesting that Kazakhstan really sort of broke through into the international scene. I think first with the listing of Kazatomprom, which was a very successful privatization and dual listing on AIX. And the London Stock Exchange was actually the very first listing on AIX, and it was very successful and actually helped attract more investors, more international investors into Kazakhstan. And it's trading well and it's doing well. I'm sorry, I've been talking for a couple of hours now, so I have to take a sip of water. So that's quite an exciting, I think, first step, and I think more businesses will definitely follow from Kazakhstan. The interesting trends that are happening right now, there are actually two. One of those, of course, you all have heard about is ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and that's more relevant to the metals and mining producers than ever before. When we talk about environment, we of course all know the impact of the environment and how important it is to pay attention to that. Social, of course, you know, in many countries, especially in Kazakhstan, you know, you have the big producers that actually have a huge impact on the nearby towns and villages, and the social impact is quite immense. They provide employment, they build schools, and support the communities, and that's the social aspect of that. And I think more and more today we are hearing about the governance part. And governance is not just about managing risks. So it's not just about thinking about safety, about, you know, how the best decisions are made that actually benefit not just the business, but actually the communities and the environment around the businesses. Governance is also about avoiding groupthink. And from that perspective, I know you may have noticed that we have an all-female panel, with the exception of our chair, David. But no, the chair is Beth, but David is the leader. What I would like to say is that diversity, especially gender diversity, is now becoming more important. So as part of the G of within ESG, we increasingly look at ensuring that boards within companies, especially in the metals and mining sector, are diverse enough to ensure that the best decisions are made. When people tend to agree, when they have the same background, when they have the same outlook on things, they tend to agree with each other. And this is where mistakes can be actually very costly, and sometimes in certain situations they can cost lives. As the London Stock Exchange, I'd like to share with you some of the things that we're doing in this space to support international companies and UK companies that are listed or traded on the London Stock Exchange. One is the array of ESG indices that are in place that we have launched, and diversity and inclusion indices. So companies, both private and actually listed companies, are sent questionnaires, and they can answer and disclose the information within their questionnaires that are developed in line with the FTSE Russell taxonomy, and they can get a score. These companies can get scores, and then they can also seek admission to certain indices focused on ESG based on those scores. That's one thing that's important, and that, of course, being part of the index ensures that you have all of the additional investors and the diversification that you need and the capital that you need. The second point is the innovation that's just recently been launched. It's called the transition bond segment, and London Stock Exchange actually launched it just last week as part of the sustainable bond segment that we already have. And the transition bonds segment actually looks at enabling companies to start this path towards and transition towards net zero, in line with the TCFD and in line with the other industry requirements that are in place. And we have developed a number of criteria that companies and metals and miners can seek to qualify for, and then raise capital where they will commit the use of proceeds to certain causes that will enable them to comply with their transition to net zero by 2050. So that's one of the things that's happening, and I think it's very important that investors and companies and market infrastructure such as the London Stock Exchange come together to ensure that collectively we work towards a better future. So that's it from me.
Thank you very much for that, Ayuna. I guess the rest of the panel is as well. I'm very, very keen to see more diversity in the industry, so thank you very much. Next up, we have Natalia Laquazana. She's Senior Banker and Associate Director at EBRD. She has over 20 years of banking experience across emerging markets, and the last 10 years have been in the natural resources sector, including numerous debt and equity transactions in oil and gas and the mining sectors. She currently also oversees the EBRD's operations in the natural resources sector in Central Asia. So thank you very much, Natalia.
Thank you, Beth, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by extending gratitude to the British-Kazakh Society for giving me an opportunity to present the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Just a few words about who we are and what we do. EBRD is an international financial institution supporting the development of sustainable and well-functioning market economies. We are owned by 69 countries, including Kazakhstan, and 2 intergovernmental institutions, the European Union and the European Investment Bank. We invest in key economic sectors of 38 countries, from Baltics in the west to Mongolia in the east, and all the way south to North Mediterranean. We will celebrate our 30th anniversary this year. In those 30 years, the bank has invested approximately 150 billion across 6,000 or over 6,000 projects, and some 3 billion went into mining. Kazakhstan is a top investment destination for EBRD, with annual business volume of between 700 and 800 million a year, and about 1/5 of it goes into natural resources. And it's no surprise, as also Dilyara dwelled about, that a substantial part of what we've been doing in the natural resources is in mining. The country possesses a very vast mineral reserves and a remarkable variety of minerals. I've read somewhere that over 60 out of 105 elements of the Mendeleev periodic table can be found in Kazakhstan. Let me say a few words about our mandate. There are several objectives for EBRD activities in promoting transition to market economies, and they are outlined on the right-hand side of this slide. The above objectives frame the rationale of our involvement in the extractive sector and underpin why and how EBRD engages in mining in our countries of operations. We aim to achieve those objectives through the three key directions: policy dialogue, technical assistance, and provision of finance. Some of them are quite intertwined very often. And the first two, the policy dialogue and technical assistance, are pretty unique to EBRD as the international financial institution. They differentiate us from commercial sources of finance and constitute a particular value added to our clients. Let me mention that all objectives are equally important, but let me flag a few examples of those activities and initiatives in Kazakhstan, specifically in the policy dialogue and sector reform space, where we have contributed to sustainable development of the country's mining sector. First of all, EBRD supported the Kazakh government in the development of a new subsoil use code, which was adopted in 2018. It is expected to attract more investment into the sector, including from foreign miners, because of improved access to geological data, streamlined evaluation of reserves, simplified granting process for subsoil use right and licensing. We have also worked with the Ministry of Investments and Development and the State Geology Committee in the adoption and transition to CRIRSCO-based standards for classification and public reporting of mineral exploration results, resources, and reserves. Finally, it's worth mentioning, as Ayuna also alluded, and it resonates with me a lot, that lenders and investors are focusing increasingly on the social impact of the investments, including whether the region where the operations are situated and the local population will benefit through employment, transfer of skills, infrastructure development, community investment programs, and development initiatives carried out by mining companies. In this area, the EBRD has traditionally led the way. And I would like to give you one example to illustrate where EBRD has led the way in Kazakhstan, both on the sector and company level. The background is that despite the rich natural resources endowment, the regional economic development, particularly in remote areas, lagged behind. The main reason for that have been a lack of new technologies and skilled personnel, as well as challenges of retaining, developing, and engaging the country's best talent. Additionally, women have not enjoyed equal access to mining-related employment opportunities. Kazakh Employment and Labor Code of those rules have been in mining. Therefore, EBRD mining clients sought the EBRD's support to address a skills mismatch, overcome a bias in staffing, and to ensure creation of a truly diverse workforce where opportunities are not restricted by age, gender, or region. 3 years ago, EBRD launched an integrated approach to economic inclusion in natural resources, and we have seen some tangible results already. In particular, the new labor code approved in 2018. In that, the government removed, thanks to the gender policy dialogue, some 75 occupations from the prohibited list on the grounds that such occupations are not detrimental to women's health. And we do continue working with the government and the key stakeholders on reducing this list further, as well as by updating the occupational health and safety standards for women and men. We have also helped several of our mining clients to improve gender equality and economic inclusion. It is worth, for example, referring to Polymetal. Their training academic center developed the course called Information System in the Mining Sector to provide work-based learning opportunities to its 650 employees, 1/3 of which are women. Polymetal also contributed to the development of a training program on occupational health and safety that they made available to several local vocational colleges. So this is the type of work which we can do with our clients. I'll skip that. I don't want to spend too much time on this particular slide detailing the EBRD product range because of the time constraint. I'm happy to elaborate further in the Q&A session or bilaterally after the webinar, just to make a few points to highlight. Well, the product range is vast and diverse, and the instruments can be adjusted to the client's needs. While some clients have wide choice, others are limited by a few factors. For example, a project stage of development, position in the cycle for specific commodity, sponsors' experience and creditworthiness, and maybe some other factors. But what's important that we're starting to work with our clients early and provide guidance on the financing structure, as well as advice on ENS aspects of the transaction, including engagement with the stakeholders. I would like also again to mention ESG, that has been gaining pace in the mining sector for a number of years, but recently its role has shifted from a mere compliance burden to financing as opportunity, as several of green finance products have become available to mining companies that can demonstrate strong ESG credentials. And here also, perhaps worth mentioning, that we're working with the Astana Financial Center on developing some of the elements of the green financial system. And I would like to leave you with a summary of the type of companies that we finance and the type of commodities and a selection of financial products and technical cooperation support that we can provide to our clients. And as you can see, several of them are from Kazakhstan. I would like to conclude my intervention by just adding that EBRD has gained the trust of its partners and is recognized for its experience and pragmatic attitude in helping mining companies and investors to implement projects in a sustainable way and coordinate and resolve a variety of issues that can be associated with project diverse and multiple stakeholders. We are therefore uniquely positioned to offer a partnership for responsible mining investors operating in Kazakhstan and in the region. And by the way, you may wonder what is this quite pretty empty frame in the right bottom hand corner. This is potentially your project implemented with the EBRD support. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Before I move on, I will briefly just remind people to please use the Q&A box to ask any questions or raise any discussion points. We do hope to have a 10 to 15 minute session for that at the end. Next up, we have Yelena 10. Yelena is a fellow chartered certified accountant with 10 years of experience in accounting and finance, specifically in oil and gas, mining, banking and commercial sectors. She gained extensive audit and deal advisory consulting experience with KPMG, and she currently serves as part of the deal sourcing team at the Astana International Finance Center. So welcome to Yelena.
Yeah, sorry, I just unmuted myself. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the dear audience. Thank you so much for inviting us for this webinar. Do you hear me well? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Yelena.
Yes, thanks. So I'm starting my presentation. I'm the Senior Manager of Deal Sourcing Department at AFC. And before I will jump in to the benefits and privileges offered at AFC, I would just want to talk briefly about what is AFC. This is basically AFC's Astana International Financial Center that was created with the aim to create the safe platform for investors to invest in Kazakhstan, in countries of Central Asia and Caucasus. So this is the unique center of its kind in our region. And basically, what are the key features of AFC? First and foremost, AFC is an independent jurisdiction and has its own independent court and arbitration system. There are 10 independent international judges and 37 arbitrators that are working at AFC that ensure high standards of quality of resolving different disputes and arbitrations at our jurisdiction. And they are working under the leadership of Lord Mans, who is the former Deputy President of Supreme Court of United Kingdom. At AFC, there is also the separate regulator called AFSA, and we have a liberalized currency control, which basically means that all transactions between AFC participants, these are the companies that are registered at AFC, may be denominated in any currency which are agreed between them. The official language of AFC is English, which is very convenient for any foreign investor. And you may also heard about our Astana International Stock Exchange that was formed in 2018, and that has made a number of successful IPOs and listings there. There are 15 legal forms available at AFC. So basically, when you create an entity, you have a choice to how to structure your entity, ownership in this entity, or the deal that you're going to enter into. There is a private company, there is a trust, foundation, special purpose vehicles. So there are a number of legal forms that will help you to structure your transaction in an optimal way. There is a separate expat center that helps to onboard the foreign citizens and the employees of our participants, and they also help to obtain the visa. As you know, there is a special visa regime offered to AFC participants and its employees. Basically, it's simplified, and the employees are granted with 5-year work visa of AFC participants. So. Yeah, and there are certain tax benefits offered when you're registering at AFC. I would say majority of tax benefits available for financial services companies, but there are also benefits available for mining companies as well. For example, the exemption for dividends paid by AFC participants. There is a zero withholding tax, and also there is a zero income tax on any dividends or coupon payments which are accrued on securities listed on Astana International Stock Exchange. There are several mechanisms offered at Astana International Stock Exchange that we'll talk about later. Some of them are suitable for mining and junior mining companies. And of course, here at AFC, as deal sourcing department, we help the companies, including mining companies, to raise capital and to attract foreign direct investments. Here is some practical example of what holding company registered at AFC can receive as a benefit. I'm sure that these materials will be distributed after the webinar, so maybe you will get acquainted better with this. But I'll just say that in the last couple of months, we have onboarded one of the largest international companies from India, which is engaged in petrochemical production, and there are a lot of international companies that are keen to create a holding company at AFC in order to structure its presence in Kazakhstan and Central Asia in the better way. So they basically create the holding company at AFC, and then they can own any operating assets in Kazakhstan, which is very convenient. So basically what we do as a deal sourcing department. Few words about our department. We are a number of experienced professionals. Majority of us are ACCA qualified. We have experience in Big Four companies, in auditing and deal advisory and deal structuring. Therefore, what we do is we source the projects from different sources. We collect the pipeline, and we perform our analysis and verification and high-level due diligence on those projects. And in case we see that the project is a prospective one, but it lacks some packaging and some pitching, we help with that because we have a consultant with consulting experience in that. And later on, once we obtain the ownership and we are sure about the projects and its financials and the model and everything, we can pitch it later to the buy side. And on the buy side, we have strong bonds with local private equity funds. We work actually with them on both ways. We offer some projects to them, and also we obtain some projects for them for later pitching. And just with the various foreign investors that are coming through our network. I would just want to show you some example of the recent project, which is now in the process of negotiation. Basically, that was a junior mining gold company, and we performed our analysis and due diligence, and also we prepared some investment proposal for them. And once we started actively pitching it, there are 2 investors already which are actively looking at the company. They're in the process of signing the NDA and looking to the data room. And there are also interest from one supranational entity, development bank, who is also keen to support them. Yeah, so basically here is just a summary of how we can help the project to obtain all the necessary tools that are available both within AFC and with on the external side. And a few words about some instruments offered by our Astana International Stock Exchange. There are some simplified regimes for medium-sized businesses, which were introduced last year. So first, for example, if you're a medium-sized business, you can enjoy some exemptions for listing if you want to list your securities on our stock exchange. And there is also a 2-tier approach for junior mining companies and just for mining companies, which allows junior mining companies to enjoy some exemptions also for the listing. And there is such instruments like private placement. For example, this is also called as exempt securities. For example, if you have a predetermined pool of investors, you can also enjoy some exemption from the general listing requirements once you want to attract financing via the stock exchange. So basically, to wrap up, here is a summary of what we do as a department. And I would just want to tell that if you are a potential investor in the mining or junior mining companies, or if you are a project who seeks investment, we are more than happy to get in contact with you, to know your needs and interests, and to help you as much as we can. So thank you very much.
Very much, Yelena. I'm conscious that time is moving on very quickly. So I will now hand over to our guest speaker, Gulshan Khoshabayeva. Gulshan is founder and director of Women in Mining in Kazakhstan. She previously served as a legal manager at International Women in Mining in London, and she's been a qualified lawyer for over 12 years. Her career history involves a diverse portfolio of roles in the mining and energy sectors, including legal, procurement, and managerial. So thank you, Gulshan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this distinguished panel. On behalf of our organization, may I take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to introduce Women in Mining Kazakhstan. Sorry. Women in Mining Kazakhstan is a volunteer-based, not-for-profit organization. Since its registration in 2020, it has been operating with the support of sponsors and volunteers. It is working in cooperation with international organizations, i.e. International Women in Mining UK, WIM Canada. Our mission is to strengthen women's participation in the sector through advocacy, professional development, regulatory reforms, and equal treatment at all levels of engagement in order to achieve gender diversity and inclusion for a sustainable mining sector. Women are still underrepresented in higher paid leadership and management roles in Kazakh mining sector. So the problem will not fix itself. We are working towards building a community to address the role of women and gender in the sector, to realize our potential to innovate and to create value for stakeholders, shareholders, and society. It is really crucial to instrumentalize women's association in order to enable the government, mining companies, international development organizations to understand gender issues and their usefulness in streamlining investments. We are connectors, bringing women and various stakeholders together. Our executive board members represent various stakeholders. For instance, Natalia Laquazana from the Ministry of Environment and Geology, Janat Baidalina from Ministry of Infrastructure and Development, Sakina Sherbekova from Central Asia Metals, and Olga Protasova from the UK Embassy in Kazakhstan. Our non-executive board is global and diverse. Professor Heffron from Center and Energy at University of Dundee, Features from Sustainable Minerals Institute at Queensland University, academia representatives. Lund from the Department of International State in London, Department of International Trade, DIT in London. Leanne Holmes, HR manager from Central Asia Metals in London. Michelle McCarthy, Canadian mining lawyer, and Jeff Parsley from SRK Consulting in the USA. So what can we do to address the barriers? Then there are many practical steps that we can take. Firstly, we will conduct a research on the Women in Mining survey to understand the current experience, identify best practices, and inform tangible action to drive participation across all technical and professional roles. Then it will be advocacy of research outcomes and implications to raise awareness through sector-wide communication initiatives and event series. We will organize mentoring to support women's career progression within the sector. We will engage with stakeholders to discuss challenges and reform the regulatory restrictions on women's employment. We write articles on industry publications and present at local and global events. There are different ways to be involved in our community, which are volunteering, attending, suggesting, and sponsorship support to strengthen our strategic alliance. More than 650 mining companies operate in Kazakhstan currently. Central Asia Metals supporting us with the website development. We welcome everyone to join us. If you have any specific questions, please send me an email and I will do my endeavor to respond to all your set questions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Gulshan. As a member of Women in Mining UK myself, it's always very interesting to hear how other women in mining organisations are operating around the world. So thank you very much for that. So we'll swiftly now move on to the Q&A session. So I have a question. First of all, I'll direct it to Ayuna, but if anybody else would like to chip in or take a shot at answering, please do. So Ayuna, you mentioned that Kazatomprom launched Kazakhstan into the forefront of the London mining market when it listed in London. What do you see the outlook? How do you see the outlook for IPOs of Kazakh companies in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Thanks, Beth. The outlook is actually looking. The outlook is really great. I think for the next, I would say even 2 years. I think, as you know, last year, Samruk-Kazyna planned to spin off quite a few businesses internationally and domestically. I think the pandemic didn't allow them to proceed with the plan as fast as they can. But I think the plans are still in place. The interesting part is that there is a demand for that. So I'll give you an example. It's not in the mining sector, but I'll give you an example of a Kazakhstani company from the financial technology and e-commerce space. The company is called Kaspi, KZ, and those of you based in Kazakhstan actually know it very well. It came to the market in October last year. Not only did it basically went through the roof in terms of the pricing, so they actually had to upsize and go above the price range that they were expecting, the demand was phenomenal. But they also actually became the most liquid company, the most liquid security on the London Stock Exchange out of 2,500 stocks on the day that they joined the market, that they started trading. So this is to give you an idea of the level of appetite that's there for great emerging market stories, specifically from Kazakhstan, where we know there is a very good track record in terms of corporate governance and in terms of already having listed companies trading within the country and outside it. So as and when we see next IPOs and companies coming from Kazakhstan, I expect a very similar level of demand and also aftermarket liquidity in companies. An interesting point is that what happens after the company goes public, and a lot of people think that there is an IPO with a big fanfare, and then that's it. But actually, this is the most important bit, what happens afterwards. So Kaspi today is 12.5 billion market size, so it's doubled in market value, just showing the continuous support from foreign investors in the story.
Great, excellent. I have a question that's come in from Jan Westad. I'm just going to throw this out there, and whoever feels best placed to answer it, please do. So the question from Jan is, how wary should potential investors in the mining sector be of ongoing investor-state disputes? So, for example, a dispute between Kazakhstan and a US investment fund under the Energy Charter Treaty has seen a repeated refusal of Kazakh authorities to pay an arbitral award, despite multiple international courts recognizing the award. Does this demonstrate potential risk for investors in mining operations?
May I just comment here?
Thank you, Yelena.
Yeah, I would say that Astana International Financial Center was created with the aim also to address such concerns. So here is the independent court system, independent arbitration, and all disputes are resolved by English independent judges. So of course there are concerns about the bias of the court system, etc. So the creation of this independent platform and the court system and shall remove such concerns in the future for the foreign investors. This was the ultimate goal of creating such a platform, such a place, to create the safe place for investor to ensure that investments are protected.
Okay, thank you very much, Yelena. And before I hand back over to David, I was just going to ask a question to everyone on the panel. Just very short, less than 30-second answers. If we were to repeat this panel in 1, 2, 3 years, what changes would you like to have seen to make Kazakhstani investments more accessible to foreign investors? Shall we start with Yelena, seeing as you're on the screen? Do you want to start with that one?
Sorry, you are addressing the question from Rustem, right? I'm representing the company, or what would you change? Sorry, I'm just hearing you and just yeah, I would say that I really enjoyed this panel. There was a lot of different and very interesting information, and I would say that maybe in the future that will be helpful if we can onboard some of the, for example, one of the mining project who can successfully, for example, whom we successfully helped, or whom successfully helped, for example, EBRD, so they can share their experience and etc. etc. So to make it a bit more practical, for example, yeah, that's just a proposal.
Okay, sorry, Yelena, perhaps I didn't phrase the question very well. I sort of meant, no, not at all, my fault. I meant, in the next 2 to 3 years, what developments would you like to see in the industry to make Kazakh companies more investable and accessible to foreign investors?
Yeah, first of all, I would say that what we see now in the industry in general, that some of the companies, I'm talking on the sales side, some of the companies are not really ready to attract the investors, so they do not have the appropriate financial model, they do not have the clear understanding and the appropriate business plan on how they want to move forward. And some of them also lack some experienced and expertise management team. So I would say that in order to attract the investments, first of all, the companies that want to attract those investments have to have the strong homework done, I would say. Yeah, and in general, I see that the government is moving forward toward helping the companies. So there are some government support mechanisms, and we also heard about the strategic investment agreement that offers the tax benefits and also the subsidies and state-in-kind grants. There are certain proposals to the tax structure and tax amendments that I hope that will be introduced soon. So yeah, that's basically all.
Thank you. Natalia, Ayuna, either of you like to put in any thoughts there?
Well, I think it would be quite rewarding to see more investors coming from outside of Kazakhstan and maybe outside of Russia, because Russian investors are quite well presented in the Kazakh mining industry. And we hope that all the changes that have been taking place in Kazakhstan, particularly on the legislative side, increased transparency, creation of the Astana Financial Center, and so on, will yield to more inward investments, additionally, including from the junior mining companies into the Kazakhstan mining industry. And maybe the second point would be quite rewarding to see some of those maybe larger companies, more established ones, having successful green finance products attracted, being it green loans or green bonds or transformation loans, anything, because we haven't seen anything yet coming from, the Central Asian region.
Lovely, thank you. All right, I think that's just about to time. I've got 11:59 on my clock, so I'd like to thank all the panelists for some fantastic presentations there and some very thought-provoking discussion at the end. David, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Well, I'd also like to thank everyone, Ross, Beth, the whole panel, for actually making this, I'd say, a brilliant event. So thank you very much. We should also thank two people that you don't see here, which is Alijan Askagaliev in London, from managing this event behind the scenes, and also Yelena in London, also doing the interpretation. Finally, I'd like to mention some of the future BKS events. On March the 17th, as part of the series for 30 years of Kazakhstan's independence, there will be a webinar conversation with the Minister of Justice, Marat Beketayev. On March the 25th, there will be an oil, gas and renewables group webinar addressing politics and economy affecting the energy industry. We hope to have a financial services event in April, and there'll be an ongoing program related to 30 years of Kazakhstan's independence. So with that, I encourage you to all look at our website. We look forward to seeing you at the next events, and keep safe. Thank you now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.